I just had this thought right here live. You see my notes. We have them all written down here.
You didn't go to Reddit or anything and look up some conspiracy theories?
Nope. I'm thinking about it right here for the right time because I'm reliving the scene.
This may sway my ratings at the end.
Okay.
This may sway my ratings because this is just like this movie. You are blowing my mind because this was a big plot hole.
This is huge, right?
No, this is huge. Bienvenido, everybody. Welcome back. It's another Just Played episode with your boys. I am James.
And I am Nick.
And we are talking about a 2002 joint, Minority Report. This movie is directed by Steven Spielberg. Now, Nick, did this feel like a Spielberg movie? Right off the bat, I got questions.
Not really.
This one kind of caught me by surprise. I didn't know it was a Spielberg flick.
Yeah, this is one of his more famous ones, obviously, but it doesn't fit into almost that Spielberg universe that you're used to.
Yeah, just like the general feeling, like the childlike wonder kind of movies that we're used to seeing from him, like E.T., even Ready Player One kind of had those same feelings.
No, this is a much, much different tone to it.
Thinking about that, he does kind of like to do these future dystopian movies like Ready Player One, AI, and Minority Report.
Yeah, he does.
It doesn't seem like a Spielberg thing to do, but you know what? If you're a good director, you kind of branch out.
Yeah, and I think that something that you brought to my attention during the week was that this is actually based on a short story.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this isn't quite necessarily Spielberg having all of his... he has a lot of inspiration going into this, and so that probably does affect his direction of it a bit. I mean, he still is very unique in the way he does things. However, knowing that it has some source material, and the guy who wrote the short story, Philip K. Dick, had wrote a lot of.
Did you read up on this guy?
I did.
Dude, this guy seems like, I don't want to say crazy. God rest his soul. He died 40 years ago, but he seemed like an interesting cat.
The smart ones usually are. To be honest, I mean, you look at what's going on in today's world, it's not that far off. I mean, you have places like China doing citizen scores for people and tracking people through technology and deciding whether to jail them or not. I mean, it's not far from some of these things that we're seeing in some of his movies.
But I'm saying, like, Philip K. Dick, the author of the short story, he said he literally kind of had a struggle with reality. He said he'd be like in alternate realities at times. And, maybe he was. I don't want to call him a crazy person because he gave us this movie and Total Recall and Blade Runner.
All I'm saying is it's okay to be a little bit crazy if you're this creative, in my opinion. Let
the kookiness out, baby.
This movie stars, as a lot of people know, Tom Cruise. This is one of his iconic roles. It also stars a young, I assume younger, I didn't actually look at his age. He could be older than I think, but a younger Colin Farrell.
Oh, I mean, technically they're all younger. This is 20 years ago.
Relatively, yeah. Samantha Morton, Max von Sydow, and a guy I actually recognize so quick.
We see all the time, this dude.
As we go back and watch these movies, it's crazy to me the amount of faces that I just immediately see and go, holy shit.
That just keep popping up.
Yeah. And then Neil McDonough, who I see all over the place, and I don't think he's aged a single day. He just has one of those faces that he could be 25, he could be 50, and his face looks the same. I actually recognize him from one of my guilty pleasure favorite movies with The Rock, Walk Tall.
Is it Walking Tall? Yeah.
Yeah.
With what's Stifler's name?
I'm gonna let you.
Sean Evan Scott.
Sean Michael Scott, right?
Is it Sean Michael Scott, like from The Office?
Oh well, now I'm as confused as everybody else.
I'm struggling on the spot.
Oh
Steve
man.
Stifler. Oh, is it Sean William Scott?
That's who you're thinking of. That's the wrong movie, though. You are thinking of The Rundown with The Rock. Walking Tall is Johnny Knoxville.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
right.
So Walking Tall and The Rundown are...
They came out within like a year of each other.
Sean William Scott is like the treasure one. And Walking Tall is like, I guess, a little bit more gritty, down to earth.
Yeah, he returns to his hometown, and there's an evil guy from his high school, played by Neil McDonough, who opened up a casino and they're selling drugs to the kids. And Dwayne The Rock Johnson decides to dole out justice with a 2x4. It's a great film.
I remember that from the poster.
Not to go down that rabbit hole. So the film was generally pretty well received. I think it still holds up today among critics, at least. We'll kind of break down how we think it holds up today. Budget of just north of 100 million and grossed 358 worldwide, so definitely a success.
I think the domestic gross was only like 3 or 30 million above that. I don't know if that's like something to scoff at or if you just kind of take a win as a win.
I think you take a win. I'm going to assume, haven't looked at this, but this may have been one of the more expensive movies at that time.
It did seem pretty steep.
Yeah, for 100 million in 2002, especially when you consider a guy like Tom Cruise, right? That is star power. So the actors, the CGI, everything about it could not have been cheap. So with all that being said, I think we should just go ahead and start tearing through this plot.
We kind of need to jump into it because this was a long movie and there is a lot to take in. To set up this movie, why don't you read us that log line?
Yeah, I'd love to. So in a future where a special police unit is able to arrest murderers before they commit their crimes, an officer from that unit is himself accused of a future murder. I want to say two things before we jump into plot talk, because I want to be bringing them up throughout. One is, if you're familiar with the book 1984, very strong vibes. I don't know when this author wrote his short story compared to when George Orwell wrote 1984. It sounds like if he died 40 years ago, it sounds like maybe they were in similar area. I think 1984 probably a little sooner. My high school English teachers would be upset with me for not knowing that.
Mine too.
However, and then the other thing I want to bring up is two themes that I noticed. So keep in mind belief in religion, and then also keep in mind eyes, like eyeballs.
Big eyes.
Big eyeballs. So I think we're going to be bringing those two themes up throughout the movie. So
once again, this is a movie you have seen before.
Yes.
But when was the last time you seen it?
Oh, it's been well over 10 years. Maybe closer to 15.
We're kind of going on a theme here. I think we need to find some movies you have literally never seen, and I've seen maybe 10 years ago.
I've seen a lot of movies in my life, especially this era growing up.
Son of Jerry Justice.
Yep. So it's big cinephile. Keeping up with the theme that we just talked about, I am kind of seeing this with fresh eyes because I've never looked at this movie and tried to dissect it. I've always viewed this movie as pure entertainment, which it does a good job on. But this is the first time I've actually gone through the movie looking for meaning and holes and really analyzing it. So I'm excited to do that.
That's the whole mission of Just Play It. So, Nick, I think it's time to jump into that plot. We are entering Plot Talk. Plot Talk. Okay, so later on, it's established that this takes place in the year 2054 or 55.
It says 54 on the opening lines, I think.
Oh, does it?
It's like super small in the corner. I barely caught it.
And that's another thing. I thought we were going to continue this theme of instructions at the beginning of the movie, like we have with the last couple of movies, but we actually didn't. And I was kind of surprised. You got to kind of discover it on your own.
This first scene is super hectic.
Some sort of like heinous crime.
Husband stabbing his wife with scissors.
Catching her cheating.
And then we're in the Department of Pre-Crime in Washington, D.C. So even though we're in D.C., though, this is not a federal thing. I think this is like a city pilot program that they're trying to take to the national level. And that's a pretty big plot point. It's like it's like the city police force. And we see this red ball coming down this almost looks like a Rube Goldberg machine. And it lands in these pods, and we see a couple names on them. Next, we see these things that are known as precogs. There's 3 humans. We believe they're humans, but it's kind of iffy at first that they're in this like milky pool.
Very cloudy water.
Yep. They are the 3 beings who can see into the future. They basically are hooked up to these machines that allow them to, on these 2 balls that come out of the machine, they have the name of the victim and the name of the perpetrator.
Yes, and these lucid visions that immediately come on screen as the movie begins are the precogs projections of the future.
Correct. A red ball, which is a murder. We find out that all the murders these days, nobody has premeditated murder really anymore. It's very stupid to do because these precogs can see it 3-4 days out. Most of these are crimes of passion, so they find out about 20-30 minutes beforehand. So we got to boom, snap into action when we find this.
And that's what the red ball signifies. It signifies a crime of passion, not premeditated, so there's not much time to act.
Correct. We see Tom Cruise go through this. He has this whole ritual, and he has this big glass screen where he can move things around with his hands, very futuristic. And I believe actually is some truth to it nowadays that technology exists where you can move around a computer screen with your hands.
Like a Tony Stark situation, start waving around your hands and these projected images start flying around you, 3-dimensional.
Yeah, I've seen some really cool, I mean, they're all prototype stuff, but it does kind of exist. So kudos for this movie for kind of seeing.
They do kind of call out a lot of stuff, and I'll point them out when we run across them.
And to that, I'll say, sometimes I wonder if this predicts the future or if future, let's say, engineers or nerds are watching this movie and going, I'm going to build that.
You remember the Apple Watch commercial? How it basically like just showed all these old cartoons that had agents with a talking watch. They kind of just said like, yeah, we recreated it from fiction and now it's a reality.
I think sci-fi does a great job of that, informing what the future is going to look like.
Self-driving cars, targeted advertising, as we'll see in this as well.
Oh, big time. Yeah, those were trippy. See, that kind of caught me off guard at first. I totally forgot about that part of the movie. So we have a agent from the Attorney General's office because they're trying to find out if they can take this model and scale it nationwide. And so it would all fall under the Justice Department. So he's there to, he says he's going to learn about it, but really what he's trying to do is a risk assessment. He's trying to audit the pre-crime division. This is played by Colin Farrell.
Yeah, it seems like he was very skeptical and it seemed like he was trying to take him down, but you're saying he was there to just get the scoop and see if it was possible to take it to the national level?
It's weird. So his motivation, it was kind of hard to tell. It's kind of hard between whether he believes in it, but he doesn't want to take any risks, right? Like, hey, if we're going to be doing this on a national level, I'm going to try and scrutinize this to the greatest degree. Or is his motivation of like, I don't really trust this, so I'm looking for issues here? I think it could be a little bit of both. Yeah, I wouldn't surprise me at all.
So they throw Colin Farrell, who plays Whitwer, into this precog room where Tom Cruise is doing all these moving of the hands, throwing the visions around his glass screen. So we're kind of getting an introduction to Colin Farrell's character and Tom Cruise's character, two conflicting sides and ideologies of this whole phenomenon known as pre-crime.
We'll get into that a little later, but because I do have something to say there. But so Tom Cruise, we'll call him because his name is Agent John. I'm forgetting his last name. Starts with an A.
It's like Anderdon or Adderall or.
We'll just call him John. So John, basically, they have these hovered jetpacks. It takes a while for them to find who this person is. They don't have any information as far as where it takes place, just who the names are of the perpetrator, the victim, and then this grainy image, and then how long until it happens.
Yeah, pretty limited information we're going off of. It's John Anderton is Tom Cruise's name. He's Chief John Anderton. Eventually,
they find where it is. They kind of narrow it down based on the clues of the grainy footage they have.
Tom Cruise he's hella smart, and he recognizes a couple things like there's a merry-go-round or something.
Yep, merry-go-round, park, the style of architecture of the neighborhood.
And then he does this classic Tom Cruise run into the house after he correctly identifies it while the clock's ticking.
And of course, with no seconds left to spare, he thwarts the murder.
Yes, between this cheating wife, the floozy man, and this obviously cucked guy, Howard Marks. And I need to point something out.
Howard Marks.
There was some foreplay talk between Sarah, Howard's wife, and the man she was cheating with. He says, the bed is soft, And she says, I'm soft. And he had a missed opportunity to say, and I'm hard.
It would have been good.
We really got the audience into it, and that classic Spielberg family fun feeling.
Everybody would have laughed. It would have been a roar in the theaters.
Everybody. The kids, the parents, the dog.
And when they arrest this guy, he starts screaming, no, not the halo, not the halo. And they put this kind of halo device on his head. And at this point in the game, we have no idea what this halo device is, but that will come up later.
And it's concerning to me that this guy knows what it is. It seems like that would just be kind of classified information. I don't know. Maybe they would advertise that like they advertise jail, saying, hey, if you do crimes, you go to jail. Or if you do pre-crime, you get the halo.
And so here we stopped it, and this is kind of our first experience with pre-crime. I know that was a lot. It was kind of hectic to explain.
This was like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah. What I want to say about that first 10, 15 minutes is this is what I really wanted. I want all movies to do this. I thought this was just a master class in world building. They throw you right into the action. They gave us pretty much all of the relevant information for how this world works, how the pre-crime works. And they did, like you said, James, they didn't take a bunch of title cards.
I was going to say.
And try and like.
Sans instructions.
No instructions. Just here's how the world works. Here's how it is. It's something, our last episode when we reviewed that movie, the movie Stealth, where they kind of held our hands through it. And we said you didn't need to do that. We would have figured this out, right? Give the audience some credit.
We're not stupid. I mean, some of us are, but
I don't know. I just was watching it and I go, wow, looking at this as, if I was watching this the first time, I would not be confused. There were some things they didn't explain that they will go on to explain, and they left some things intentionally vague. But as far as this first 15 minutes, wonderful. Perfect. Stealth couldn't build a story with Legos. This built the story out in the first 10, 15 minutes, and they said, here's the world. Hey, audience member, you're going to be able to figure this out. We're going to give you all the tools. Keep up.
Credit to the man, the myth, the legend, Steven Spielberg, because again, he's going off a short story for his reference, but he's the one pulling this off in the first 10, 15 minutes, getting the audiences engaged and smart to what's going on in this world. Cut forward to Tom running through the streets. That's where we kind of get our first glimpse of these targeted advertisings where they kind of call you out by their name. And we learned that this dystopian future, the city scans your eyes, and stores and merchandise can scan your eyes, and it's just very invasive. It's what us Americans don't want.
But it's basically like having a phone in your pocket.
It's pretty much like having a phone in your pocket and saying DiGiorno out loud one time, and then all of a sudden you get all these DiGiorno ads on Instagram. Even though I've never bought a DiGiorno product. I go to the mom and pop pizza shops.
Sidebar, you know what the most frustrating ads I ever get on the internet are?
It's not DiGiorno.
For stuff that I already bought.
Yeah.
I could have bought it 2 days ago, and you send me an ad for it. You don't have to sell me. I just bought it. Like, you need to get your data in order here.
You're tracking me, right? You know I bought this. You know it's getting delivered on Tuesday.
If you're going to track me, do it right.
So John, he runs towards or past a drug dealer, which it seemed like it was an accident. They stumbled upon him and did a casual drug exchange, but maybe that was planned. So it looked like it wasn't so forward. And he didn't mean to stumble into this drug dealer of this fictional drug known as Neroin.
Neroin? Like neurological?
It's like neurological heroin, I believe.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like. It looked like that was just his running route, and his dealer's just at the end of his running route. And he just like works it out perfectly. Like, done with my run, and I'm going to hit my dealer.
I'm going to get my drugs and sniff them.
Okay, so here's the rub.
I see you have some notes on this.
Yeah, Tom Cruise is a little flawed here. He likes to do his drugs, high-stress job, and he likes to unwind a little bit with his Neroin. And so we see this drug dealer named Lycon, I think it was.
I was just going to say Lycan.
He makes this comment, and it's the first time. So he pulls back his hood, and we see he has no eyes. Eyeballs just not in his skull. And he makes this comment to John, and he says, a one-eyed man is king among the blind. It's kind of the first time we hear about eyes.
Yeah, I think it's actually like an actual quote from like a proverb. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
Gotcha.
I don't know what that quote is from, but Obviously, they inserted it into this movie and wanted to make that a big part of its theme. I didn't know what to think about this drug dealer. I know he just supplied John, and that was it. I don't know. I kind of was trying to chew on that line, but I couldn't really get too much out of it. There's a lot of mentions about eyes in this movie.
I think what the line basically means as a proverb is even someone with one eye is valuable when everyone else is blind. Not literally blind, but when no one else is willing to look or see the truth. Right? If everybody's not paying attention to something and are blind to an issue, even someone with one eye open holds more power than the rest of the blind. At least something like that, and that does ring true throughout the movie. So, James, I see here on our document that you have a note that this movie is very blue.
It's very blue. This reminded me a lot of The Matrix and how that movie is very green, and this movie is very blue visually.
The future is always blue.
It's always bleak, like a cold color. If something ain't right.
It's like blue and like blue reflection off metal, like kind of dingier metal.
I noticed a lot of super blown out glare, and I didn't know if that was supposed to sell some sort of futuristic effect. But there's a couple scenes where in the beginning of the movie, it's kind of just like a blue shade over the footage. But as you progress through this movie, there's a lot of super glares, and I didn't know if that was meant to be like blinding to our eyes or just kind of sell the effect that, hey, there's a bunch of screens outside, or it's a little bit more artificial world we live in. Lots of glaring lights.
I think what you just said there is true. Like everything's artificial. Like blue light is very artificial. A lot of futuristic movies I'm aware of, just everything kind of has that blue hue.
So moving along, we're in John's smart house, and this is where we get another nod of the targeted advertisement. The cereal box, the characters are moving on it, and that's just normal. He throws it, he tosses it to say, he's like, I don't have time for you moving cereal box characters. I gotta watch home movies of my dead kid, presumed dead.
We don't know what happened to his son. We don't know if he's dead, if he's just missing. He had a wife as well that's not in the picture, so maybe they left him. We don't know.
Lots of mystery.
Yeah, but we get a taste of why John is broken, why John's huffing his drugs here.
We're back at the Department of Pre-Crime. Whitwer is there. And pretty much this is where they kind of go into a little bit more exposition of how this whole pre-crime division works. Our boy, Neil McDonough, he's kind of explaining the precogs can see murder, and then Colin asks why only murder. And he's quoted to explain, because of the nature of murder, there's nothing more destructive to the metaphysical fabric that binds us than the untimely murder of one human being to another. Now, Nick, when he said this, did you immediately understand that? Or did you just kind of accept it? Because I just kind of accepted it. I'm not that smart to catch all those big words at once.
I just accepted it.
Because basically what Whitwer's asking is, why can't they see assault or suicide? Why is it strictly just homicide? And basically the answer was, it's the strongest form of a crime, which kind of seems subjective. I mean, we're going to be going into this about religion versus science and religion versus law, but in God's eyes, all sins are equal. So essentially in these precog milk people, they say, oh, murder's the worst crime. That's kind of subjective, maybe someone could say something else is worse.
I agree with that. So from what I understood what was happening, they were saying, right, murder is the one very noticeable crime that tears a society apart more than any other, right? If you're taking a human's life, that's really catapults a city into disarray. But they can see these other crimes. They have a bunch of different colored balls for it, but what they were doing was they were sedating the precogs, keeping them in the correct state and really focusing them in on murders. Because we will find out a little later, they can see almost all of the future.
And that's some of my questions I have as we progress through this movie. It seems that they can only see murders, but we do realize that they can see other stuff.
Yeah, they can see just about everything, but the murders do come to them the strongest, and crimes kind of come to them the strongest, kind of like these really intense moments in the future.
And we learned that these precogs, aka these three people in this milky water that can see the future and see these murders, they are products of parents that have abused the Narrowin drug. Am I right?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's a byproduct of that.
A byproduct of that, and then all the cocktail of drugs that they tried to give these kids to save them, because they were just dying because they were so effed up from being born on this Narrowin that they needed to try and save them. And then the mixture of being born with all this shit in their system, plus the drugs they were trying to save them. The doctor who created it basically says it created this unholy chemical imbalance that caused all this.
And we get into the meat and potatoes of the religion versus science debate here. Colin Farrell's character says a quote, "Science has taken our miracles." And he's basically saying like, wow, these people are amazing. They're literally unbelievable in their abilities. And the pre-crime division is basically stating like, yeah, they're pretty much science projects. And it's best not to think of them as human.
Agent John basically says that to him.
John is team science, which is hilarious because Tom Cruise was a Scientologist.
Yeah.
Colin Farrell is a religious guy.
I'm assuming that Irish makes him pretty Catholic.
I think he said in the movie, he's like, yeah, my dad died on the church steps.
Yeah, in Dublin.
Yeah, he had to throw his Irish culture in there, even though he has like an American accent.
Yeah, so I'd assume pretty Catholic. They have this whole thing where do they think of themselves as cops or clergymen?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Are you
another one?
Are you serving these gods, these precogs, or are you actually police officers? And a lot of the agents there thought of themselves as clergy at that point. They basically said you could tell that there's this holy reverence for these precogs, which the relationship with the precogs is weird and definitely evolves throughout the movie. You know, they go into the pool, they call it the temple, right?
Yeah, they call it the temple, which is another, but that's a religious term. So it's interesting that the pre-crime science guys call it that. Wally, who is the on-site tech nerd, who kind of has a weird relationship with these precog humans, and he explains that they're in this bath that is called photon milk. These three humans are in this photon milk pool. John says best not to think of them as human. Meanwhile, Whitwer is looking for flaws in the system. Again, going back to how he's a little skeptical about the whole operation. He says flaws are human. Humans make flaws.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a thematic two sides, one coin of what's going on here. The pre-crime division sees these three precogs as tools, and Whitwer sees them as humans.
Are these science projects? Are these humans? The science is correct, but the human element creates the flaws. When everybody leaves this room, and granted, John's never been in this room. He doesn't want to associate with the precogs. Like he said, they're not even human. They're just basically tools. One of the precogs, Agatha, by the way, they're all siblings. There's two male twins, and then their older sister, Agatha.
Oh, are they all related?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I knew that obviously the twins were. I didn't know Agatha was also a sibling of the twins.
I believe so.
Well, Agatha ends up being a very important character because apparently she is the strongest of the precogs.
Yes. So she grabs John in like a really rattling scene.
It actually scared me. It was pretty jump scary.
Lunges out of the photon milk.
That cloudy milk water.
Grabs John and tells him, "Can you see? Can you see?"
Kind of forces him to see visions of a drowning woman.
Well, she's projecting it up on the screen overhead. There's little screens above them, and she projects this murder, this vision of a murder that she once had visions of, and they supposedly solved the case. But we'll see. John's like, that was weird.
Little breadcrumb drop there for obviously something we're going to pick up later.
Yeah. So he's like, I'm going to go investigate this. He finds out that it was the murder of Anne Lively. And so he's going to go and he wants to go see the murderer and get the files from it. So he goes into this, what could only be described as a coma chamber. It almost looks like a scene out of The Matrix, with all these humans basically in these pods.
That's what I'm saying.
And we find out that that halo from that first scene they put on the guy basically puts you into this coma.
Which seems like kind of really messed up. Like, wouldn't you think they would just go into a jail? Like, why do they have to go into a fucked up looking tube and they're naked and they go into a coma? Like, why not just put them in jail?
I'm wondering if it doesn't put them in some sort of virtual reality. They never explain it.
They don't.
I don't know.
And now I understand why Howard Marks was like, not the Halo, put me in jail.
Just kill me at a certain point.
Because it's just unsettling.
We don't know if they're there indefinitely. We don't know. We honestly just don't know.
It seems like a form of abduction. Because that's what I was wondering. Is this a government department or is it a private sector and they're just putting them in their weird milk tube chamber with Tim Blake Nelson watching over them? He plays Gideon. It
was good to see Tim Blake Nelson.
This guy shows up in a lot of stuff, man. The number one thing I know him from is Holes.
Definitely Holes.
You'd recognize him.
Yeah, the second I saw his face, I was like, son of a bitch, this guy.
But Tim Blake Nelson, a.k.a. Gideon, Tom Cruise is in there and he's looking for inconsistencies and he's kind of spotting them. Meanwhile, Gideon, the jail tech who is in here 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, he's not suspicious at all about the inconsistencies in the precog footage or the visions. He only sees coincidences. Pretty shrugadelic to everything. It's just like, that's probably an error.
So what we find out during this scene is that the visions they see are basically a combination of all three of the precogs.
They are all connected, and it has to do with how powerful their visions are.
Correct.
We learn later that their brains are connected, and that's what can predict these murders.
Right. But each precog also sees each individual scene differently.
This is where we get a little mind bendy. So I hope you're keeping up, ladies and gentlemen.
They can disagree, the three precogs, and basically the two can overrule the one. But we also learn that Agatha is the most powerful one. And in this case, Agatha's vision was the one that was disregarded. And so now a little bit of doubt starts to creep in. And like I said, that theme of belief, that theme of almost religion, Tom Cruise believes wholeheartedly in pre-crime. And now there's a seed of doubt that creeps in.
Now he's starting to leave the L. Ron Hubbard Church of Pre-Crime.
But we don't have time to dwell on that because there's a brown ball.
Another breadcrumb along the trail. We got to get back to work and look at this brown ball. Now, what's a brown ball, Nick?
Brown ball is a premeditated murder.
Which apparently is a very stupid thing to do because there is pre-crime. So who would premeditate murder?
Only an idiot would.
Now, I have a question real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So the Department of Pre-Crime and the precogs, can they only have a range in D.C.? It's just, this is a logistical question. There's no way they would see a murder in Austin, Texas, and then deploy Washington, D.C. precog time cops over there, you know? They do want to go nationwide, but like, is the power of all three limited to a range? They don't dive into that, but these are just questions I need to know. I need the answers. I want to know how it works. It's such a fascinating idea.
I would say, if I had to guess, because kind of what we said with where they only see murder, they keep the precogs so sedated. Basically, the helmets they wear really help decipher everything. So if anything, I would say the pre-crime division decides what the radius is. I don't know if there's a limit.
I guess that would be too much if they can hear or see everything across the country. So maybe one individual precog can maybe predict the future of certain people within a 15-foot radius, but the three of them connected together, they have 20-mile radius. I don't know. Just a little logistical question I had.
So we look through this murder scene from the precogs for this premeditated murder, and surprise, surprise, who is the perpetrator?
It's freaking John Adderall. I mean, John
Anderton.
It's Chief John Anderton. He is the suspect, and his name comes out on the ball.
It does.
Let's just real quick dive into the ball mechanics. So basically, the precogs have a vision, and this lottery ball is then carved out of some sort of 3D printing chisel machinery. and it engraves the name of the suspect. So
Correct.
when they said they got a brown ball, they saw the material, the wood, and the color first, and then as John is scrubbing through the visions later on, after it comes down the little lottery slide, we see it's John Anderton's name. Is this the first time someone used scrubbing as a way to fast forward through already downloaded video?
That's a good question.
It could have been. So I wonder if this is the first time that term was used, or if it's been around.
That's a great catch.
Thought that was interesting.
Basically, the only other person who sees this vision is the precog tech.
Wally.
And he looks at John. Wally looks at John and says, "You've always been nice to me. I've always liked you."
Which I like.
Yeah.
I like that line. It's
Yeah.
like, be that guy. In that situation,
Yeah.
if you suspect someone's a cold-blooded murderer and you are looking at them dead in the face, you say, "Hey, you were always nice to me," or "I always liked you. I'm going to give you a 2-minute head start before I hit the alarm."
Yep. And here starts a chase and escape scene that we just don't see in movies anymore. I loved this. I loved every second of this chase escape scene.
Walk me through it and why you loved it.
I don't need to paint too much of a picture, but it involves getting chased with the jetpacks, him fighting off a lot of the jetpack guys, commandeering one of the jetpack guys, flying it into buildings. He runs. He ends up finding himself in a car manufacturing joint.
Like an assembly line.
Yep, in an assembly line.
For Lexus. This movie was obviously endorsed by Lexus and sponsored by it.
Well, hold on. Let me back up. Before he gets that, he's in his car going home. The car turns itself around. They're all self-driving vehicles. And then he has to get out of his driving car on this crowded freeway with all these other self-driving cars, jump from car to car.
And it's like a waterfall. They're going
90 degrees down.
The cars have gone horizontal and they have turned 90 degrees downwards. So he's basically playing Frogger on a waterfall road, hopping on top of one car to another, which essentially would be the sides of the cars because they're sideways at a 90-degree angle. Wild stuff. I did think the altercation in the alleyway was a little slapsticky with the stunts. And I think that's because it was they already had a bunch of CGI money going towards other stuff. They couldn't really CGI the fight scene. I don't know if it was the time or just the budget or just the stunt crew, but it was a little kind of silly.
Well, I think you add that in with Tom Cruise always doing his own stunts.
That's true.
And that kind of informs how much you can and cannot do with a fight scene like that. If they remade it today with a stunt man, you could imagine it'd be a really, really, really well done scene. I still think it was well done.
Tom's upped his game. You know, he's hanging on the side of a real plane that's taken off for Mission Impossible. He's flying jets and Top Gun.
Yeah, he's a madman.
He fits the mold of this character perfectly. It's Tom Cruise is going to Tom Cruise, and he does it well in this movie.
And there's nothing you can do about it. So we end this chase in a car factory, and they're fighting on all the machinery. Him and Colin Farrell are having the showdown, trading punches, and Tom Cruise falls into a car being assembled.
Perfect escape plan. Just he gets built into a fully functioning car, and he drives away in it.
Then he drives away, and I was just like, that was great. I liked it. Front to back. I loved that. You just don't get those kind of long chase and escape sequences anymore in these movies.
He went from his car that overtook his directions and I guess is connected to the government because it was driving him back to the station.
Well, I think it was programmed, right?
And he ends in a brand new car that doesn't know any better.
Brand new? Hasn't been programmed yet?
This new Lexus is like, I got you, dog. We're going to go drive and see the creator of the pre-crime division, Hinneman.
Yes, Dr. Hinneman.
Dr. Iris Hinneman.
This is where we finally find out about where the precogs came from. We find out that they were the kids of these addicts. And basically that we find out that these precogs can disagree with each other. And that Agatha is the strongest one.
The 2 out of the 3 can have one vision where 1 out of the 3 can have a different vision. And this is where the term the Minority Report comes from. It's from this 1 out of the 3 precogs having a separate vision, which is the minority report as opposed to the majority report. And that's the report that gets disregarded, which is the key to solving these cover-ups and unveiling the truth.
Yeah, exactly. And we find out that the a copy of this vision is stored somewhere, the safest place it could be. It's stored within the precog. So basically, the precog can never forget the vision that they saw. And this is again one of those shaken faith moments where John goes, I didn't know about this. I didn't know there could be a minority report." And he has this moment where he's like, "Did I put away innocent people based on faulty information from the precogs? Did I kill or put Halo these possibly an innocent person?"
Yeah. And then let me just say this, in Dr. Hinneman's house, she lives in a house that has a lot of living plants. And Tom Cruise actually hops the fence and these plants start grabbing at him. And I thought it was pretty creepy. Inside, there's all these moving plants that are living. And I was thinking, wow, this kind of reminds me of the Harry Potter plant class with all the plants that are alive. That was a subconscious thought because my mind was literally being blown about the Minority Report. I was kind of in the moment with John there.
Yeah.
Because I thought, wow, they stated in the beginning, the precogs are never wrong. And then we discover, hey, shocker, government conspiracy cover-up. Sometimes there's a separate precognition, which is called the Minority Report. And guess what? They delete it. So I was completely distracted from all these living plants, from the realization of what the Minority Report is. Sidebar, those plants that grabbed John on the outside, they're named the doll's eye. Again, with the eyes.
The eyes.
The eyes are watching. And what's with Dr. Hinneman's creepy kiss on John?
It was weird.
It was pretty forward. I took that as, hey, John, you need to uncover the truth and download the Minority Report directly from the precog human, and this is how you do it. I thought the key was going to be a kiss. But I think she just really wanted to make out with Tom Cruise.
Hey.
And she's kind of an old lady, which is, go for it if he's right in front of you.
Can't blame her. She's been trapped in that plant house forever. She's looking for some action. She might be doing weird things with those plants. We don't know.
You get yours, Lois Smith, who plays Dr. Hinneman.
So we have to break into pre-crime, and we have to go and grab Agatha. Now, we have a problem, speaking of eyes, is that these eye scanners are everywhere. He couldn't get within 10 miles of pre-crime. So what we find out what happened
without
to our...
getting tagged.
Exactly.
I think he's getting off a train and all these eyes are being scanned. And I don't know if you noticed it, but there was a lady with her eyes closed and they had the same visual effect of the scan happening over her eyelids. So I thought, oh, snap. So you could be even covering your eyes and they'll still tag you.
It's a scary time in this 2054.
We're on our way.
We're getting there. Call back to that drug dealer who had no eyes. We find out, and we were actually told about this earlier on as well, in the coma room, the coma cell room. The director there, Gideon, he says the guy who killed Anne Lively, the vision that Agatha gave him, he's a John Doe. They said, how do you have a John Doe? Why don't you scan him? They said, well, it's a pretty common thing for criminals to get their eyes removed and swapped out with another pair of eyes. There's this black market for eyes.
Wouldn't it register the original owner of the eyes? How would they know?
Well, if you look at who the eyes belong to and you see a picture of him, you go, oh, that's not the guy.
Okay.
And you have mismatched eyes, right?
I was trying to get a little cheeky exploitation of a plot hole there, but you defended Minority Report very well. Good job.
There it is.
You should be a lawyer.
So John needs himself some new eyes. And this is where we can go back and say, okay, our drug dealer probably sold his eyes for drugs because there's this whole black market for it. So we go to this weird underground eye doctor,
a
Russian
really
guy.
Disgusting place. Like, this doctor is sketch.
We find out that actually John at one point had arrested him.
Yeah, they have prior history.
As he's getting sedated, as he's already been anesthetized. So I was like, oh, shit.
I was
this doctor's
scared.
going to fuck with him.
I was scared for John for a second.
But he's a professional, this doctor. He is a medical professor. He has taken the Hippocratic Oath. He will do no harm.
Black market or legit doctor, he took an oath as a doctor. Way to go, Dr. Eddie, you crazy Russian bastard.
So we go ahead, we get our eyes swapped out. We later learn that these are the eyes of a Mr. Yakamoto, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah, it's like obviously this Tom Cruise white guy is not named Mr. Yakamoto, although he could be married into it. This is 2054 after all.
Could have been adopted.
Shame on us.
We don't know. And at this point, Colin Farrell's character, he goes and visits John's ex-wife, Laura.
Who is alive.
Yeah, so Laura is alive, and we find out that the disappearance and murder of their son is eventually what drove them apart. There's this whole scene, and really the whole point of this right now is that Colin is tracking down Laura, or trying to track down John. So I call him Colin in the movie.
Sorry, in my notes I wrote Colin because I didn't know his name until I looked it up afterwards.
Whitwer.
Danny Whitwer is his name.
The funny thing is that there's this whole kind of back and forth between predetermination and not. So there's one point when they say, we have to go find John. And Whitwer says, there's nothing we can do. We can't stop what the precogs have seen. He will be in that room with the fellow who's going to kill Leo Crow. But they still do go after him because they're cops. It's what they have to do. They have to go out and search for him. But there's this weird kind of push and pull between, can you really stop what's going to happen? Which I thought the whole time is a really interesting thing, right? Like my plot hole here is, why wouldn't you go find this Leo Crow fellow and try to protect him? Right? Go find the source of that instead of hunting down John.
Yeah, you have the victim.
Yeah, so it was a really weird push-pull there where if this is going to happen, there's nothing you could do to stop it. Also, we're going to try and stop it. And I think that kind of goes back to the man versus machine, right? Like, the machine says this, but we as humans are going to try and prevent it from happening, even though this machine these tools are flawless.
Allegedly.
So it's really weird.
Yeah, he's got a bandage over his head after the eye swap, and he can't take that bandage off for 12 hours or he will go blind. Going back to the quote from Lycan about the blind world.
John has this serum that kind of like distorts his face so he doesn't get tagged by any like facial recognition. We get ourselves back to pre-crime. We make our way to Agatha, and he's in the pool with Agatha. And he basically flushes all of the liquid. And him and Agatha get sucked down this tube and are on their way to make their great escape.
Flushes Agatha down the milk toilet. And the other twins don't even know.
Yeah, they're still passed out.
They're just still sitting in their milky lawn chairs, just milking it up in their milk suits.
Just being milky boys.
Just milk people.
And then we learn from the scientists that
photon milk.
The pre-crime won't work. Pre-crime won't work because they all have to be there together. The two twins cannot see any of these murders without Agatha.
He says they are a hive mind.
So basically the system's down right now. We're driving in the car. We got Agatha, and she is freaking the fuck out.
She's finally living in the now. She's no longer a prisoner. And I thought she was maybe just seeing all these futures of all these people that are around her, or, it's out of her control. But John kind of says like, oh, it's the drugs. They'll start wearing off because, like you said, they do sedate them.
John now has to basically hack into Agatha's brain to find this Minority Report.
He believes he has a Minority Report for his case. He believes that there is some sort of alternative future where he is not a killer because, again, he does not know who this Leo Crow guy is and believes he is innocent, which is all true.
He goes and meets this guy who he knows, kind of this hacker, kind of futuristic. He's tech nerd, and he's going to have him hack into her brain and download the missing Minority Report.
This guy, he reminded me of Jason Mantzoukas.
Yes.
Basically kind of like a Dennis Feinstein from Parks and Rec. But this guy is played by Jason Antoon, and he's got a steady job on NCIS Hawaii. So that's what he's up to these days.
Good for him.
But he's basically, he runs this kind of virtual brothel type location where people can live out their sick fantasies, and he's not necessarily advertising that to the legal government. So some guy comes in and he's like, I want to fantasize about killing my boss. And he's like, yeah, I can do that for you. And other people are fantasizing about sexual stuff. Basically just like a seedy cash under the table. This is a shady type business. John knows this guy. He's had a couple run-ins with him, or kind of like the classic rogue cop trope where the cop who says that he's self-righteous and believes he's doing the right thing, but he still kind of dips his hands into these seedy characters who can give him some sort of hookup to ultimately do the right thing. This is kind of the relationship between Rufus and John. This is a facility where he can download the Minority Report from Agatha.
So he wants to find his Minority Report, but all Agatha is doing is showing him this murder that she showed John before, which is the murder of Anne Lively.
The drowning woman.
It's all she's focused on.
And he's like, I don't need this. What is this?
But he does see an inconsistency there. So he understands that she's trying to show him this and that something's wrong with this, but he keeps asking her for his Minority Report. It turns out there is no Minority Report for John. All the precogs agreed on the murder he was going to commit.
And I'll say this, for as confusing and a lot of rules this movie has, it did have a lot of very engaging plot twists.
You had no idea what was coming next.
I was tied in. I was tied into the story the whole time. I wanted to know what was happening next. Why was this twist and turn happening?
But, of course, terrible timing. Here comes Whitwer. And we got to escape through the mall. And this was a really cool scene because as they were escaping, Agatha was telling John how to escape by seeing into the future, where to go, what to do, how to slow them down. And that's when we could really see that she can see almost all of the future, not just the murders. When she's kind of out and free and able to use her power.
So this is what I was going to bring up. I thought, why can they only see murders and nothing else? But they can. It's just the pre-crime division department wanted to only exploit them for stopping murders.
Correct. They're calibrated just to
Maybe
see
they didn't even want to see murders.
In the milk.
Because
it's just murder milk.
Who would want to see... Who wants to sit in murder milk and just watch murders all day? That just seems like an environment that would drive me crazy. I would want to see the happy stuff.
That's why they have to sedate them. They basically are like in this half asleep state, floating in milk, looking at murders. It's fucked up. And that goes back to, are they humans? We got to treat them like humans.
Yeah, and when we were watching this, Emily was like, she's watching it with me. She asked, did these guys volunteer? This is weird. And I was like, I don't know. And then we learn, nope, they're basically prisoners.
Not a chance.
They're prisoners in this system.
So John needs to get to the bottom of all of this. And so they go to Leo Crow's place, where supposedly the murder is going to happen. And Agatha is begging him to leave. But John needs to know.
I don't blame him. Don't blame the guy. I would want to know why the hell am I here, and why did I see myself passionately murdering this guy?
Because the murder was pretty graphic. Like, it seemed personal.
It seemed very...
But we don't know the guy.
Very personal and pretty intimate.
They get up to Crow's room, and they find hundreds of pictures of John's son, Sean. Now remember, this is the only thing really driving John at this point in the game. Everything he does is basically the reason he drives himself for pre-crime is because of his son.
Yeah.
That's why he believes in this so much.
Because if pre-crime was around when his son disappeared or was killed, maybe it wouldn't have happened.
He basically says, I always said, if I found the man who did this, I would kill him. And right there, that's what made this whole thing premeditated. Because John, in his mind, had always planned on killing the man who did this to his son. I know that the first time that I had to think through it, I said, is this premeditated? Because he didn't know the guy.
Hold on, Nick. Yeah, you wrote some notes down about this plot hole, and I had the same notes about this plot hole. I said, he didn't know this guy. He didn't say, hey, I'm going to go to Leo Crow's house and murder him. He found that out within moments of meeting this guy. And I took that as...
But his intention...
I took that as a crime of passion, because he didn't know that this person allegedly kidnapped his son or killed him. I thought, isn't this a crime of passion? You're blowing my mind.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I just had this thought
live on the air
right here live. You see my notes. We have them all written down here.
You didn't go to Reddit or anything and look up some conspiracy theories?
Nope. I am seeing this. I'm thinking about it right here for the right time. I'm reliving the scene.
This may sway my ratings at the end.
Okay.
This may sway my ratings because this is just like this movie. You are blowing my mind.
This is huge, right?
This is huge. No, this is huge because this was a big plot hole. Like we said, Red Ball is a crime of passion. As soon as we walk into this scene, I'm thinking John is about to kill this dude out of pure revenge and hatred and anger. This is a crime of passion. He just came up with the idea on the spot. Now that you say he was destined to kill the man or woman that took his son or killed his son, I guess technically that could be premeditated murder. God damn it, Nick. You're blowing my freaking mind, dude.
I'm blowing my own mind when I thought about that. I go,
Emily, give me some photon milk.
We're loading up. We got a lot more ways to go on this one.
I need a drink.
So Crow comes in and the timer is going down. We have the timer to the murder. John is pointing the gun at Crow. And we come to the realization that he didn't kill John's son. He was paid to look like it, to take the fall for it.
Not only plot twist in the movie, but now plot twist in real life, Nick. So now that he wasn't the guy that killed his son, he wasn't destined to kill this man. It can't be premeditated.
We're going to get into that because turns out the precogs were wrong. John doesn't shoot this man.
He doesn't intentionally shoot this man. This man basically forces John's hand because whatever deal he struck with this suspect number one, who in my mind is going to be Lamar. He's kind of like the old head that's in charge of pre-crime. He strikes a deal with this suspect who's pulling the strings behind the scenes. And he says, if you don't kill me, my family gets nothing. So this fall guy was taken out of jail and given this opportunity to pretty much die for his family.
Correct. So they could be taken care of. But we see that the murder intention was there, but the time on his clock runs out, which means the precogs were wrong.
Yeah.
He did not kill him at that time. So now we have this new dilemma, which is, okay, there was no minority report, so it wasn't an inconsistency. Are the precogs actually wrong, or is there no such thing as predetermination, as in this movie?
Like, do you have free will?
Do you have free will
when the time comes?
Or are you on a path that leads you to... Because the whole pre-crime division is predicated on the idea that you're on this path and there's nothing that is going to stop you, so we have to stop you.
Correct.
You don't have the free will to choose. So either only one of two things here could be true. Precogs are wrong, or you have more free will than what the precogs believe.
Correct.
Crazy.
So now kind of going back on it, since the timer ran out and after the fact, that's when we learned that he wasn't actually the killer. That's right. Yeah. So, okay. All right. So,
because he was going to arrest him.
So the way you blew my mind might still stand because the timer expired when John believed that this was his son's killer.
Correct.
And at some point, he changes the course of the future because he goes against the precog's vision. And then it's after that fact that we learned, oh, this is not the man that killed Sean. At the time being, he was identified as a person who did commit the crime, where John was ready to kill this guy and he was predetermined to kill his son's killer. We never know who abducted him or killed Sean, correct?
Correct.
I don't want to say he lets it go, but he kind of lets it go. He tables it. He puts it on the back burner for another day. He's unraveling all sorts of corruption, and conspiracy within the pre-crime division. At this point, this scene is where it got really juicy. This is where the meat and potatoes are. And then the falling out of this is kind of a little telegraphed, you'd say, because as soon as I realized this was a setup, at first they're pulling our strings, you know, they're saying, "Oh, it was a setup," and then John gets there and he's like, "Oh shit, no, this was not a setup because there's no minority report, and this is the guy that killed my son. I realize that I do want to kill this man." And then they do another plot twist where it's back to being a setup. And as soon as they said it's a setup and who has access to certain things, I thought it's that old guy. It's Lamar.
And we haven't really introduced Lamar really as we were going through this, but like you said before,
because they don't want to they don't want to pay too much attention to him and make him an obvious suspect. But at that point, he was super obvious of a suspect to me.
Yes, at that point, it became really obvious. And this is actually a turning point for Agent Whitwer, because he gets to the crime scene and they say, yeah, I guess John did kill Leo Crow here. And Whitwer says that the crime scene is fishy. Basically, what he sees doesn't add up. There's all these pictures of John's kid laid out across the bed,
a bunch of kids,
and he's like,
this is way too easy. There's no way."
Yeah, he said when I was a detective, you know what we'd call this? An orgy of evidence.
Yeah, or like evidence orgy.
And this never happens. Yeah, and this never happens. Nobody just leaves this much evidence out and about. So Whitwer, kind of having a little wild hair up his ass, he kind of goes, all right, I need to go see Lamar. And we had learned a little bit earlier about these things called echoes that the precogs have, where if a murder's really bad, they basically can see it twice, right? Like a deja vu. So it'll kind of hit them twice. Whitwer basically says, well, wouldn't that be a perfect cover-up to murder somebody?
And Lamar's like, "You're damn right it would." And then boom, shoots this guy. So right as I was kind of joining Whitwer's side, because he's kind of been a little bit of a dick. You know, you assume you're on Tom Cruise's side, and Whitwer's going to Laura, Tom Cruise's or John's ex-wife, and saying like, "Oh, it's pretty much John's fault that your son's no longer alive." And you're just like, Colin Farrell's a dick. And then at this point, you're seeing that John and Whitwer's motivations and feelings are pretty much going to be on the same side of this fight. John's kind of crossing over, and Whitwer's just wants to unveil the truth and get justice. And then right as you're rooting for Whitwer, boom, Lamar freaking shoots this guy.
Yeah, you kind of feel for Whitwer, because at that point you realize he's pretty much just doing his job, right? Because he was objective when he looked at the crime scene with John.
No matter how many low blows he did along the way, he was just trying to uncover the truth and see if anything shady was happening. And guess what? There was
something shady happening. And to be fair to Whitwer, he was the one who was like, there's flaws here. And John was the one who told him there are no flaws. Like, what the precogs say is true. So all the information that Whitwer was relying on was from the precogs, who he was reliably informed by John are 100% accurate. So I can't blame Whitwer really for any of this.
At this point in the movie, when I think I had the suspicion of Lamar, and then obviously once Lamar caps Whitwer, then you know he's the bad guy. And pretty much we just kind of ride out this movie of how is Lamar going to be exposed.
I do want to say the whole movie up to this point, what a crazy fun setup.
Very engaging, hella plot twists. On the edge of my seat.
Going a really long way to get to this realization, but in a very rewarding way. Because everything's starting to come together, everything they explain to us, you know, we kind of talk about this in previous movies we've watched, where all of a sudden we just get this new information that turns the whole story on its head. And we didn't really get that. We've been given all of the information. We just didn't have the tools to piece it all together. And they're giving us tools to piece it together. They're not just dropping new information on us. We learned about these deja vus and echoes, right?
Yeah, and this is one of those movies where when you sit on it for a couple of days and you kind of think about it, you realize and find these things that make sense.
So John takes Agatha to what he views as probably the only safe place, and that's his ex-wife's house, Laura's house. And so they get there, and there's this really touching scene. It almost made me tear up.
Wow, you?
Yeah, man. Where Agatha's sitting there and she is explaining what their son's life would have been like. Goes to college, becomes a track runner, meets a beautiful girl, gets married. And it's very touching. And we also learn that Anne Lively, the drowning woman, was Agatha's mom. And that's why she's been so fixated
Adamant
on this murder. John gets captured. The pre-crime guys finally get there, and he gets haloed.
They bring in the hovercrafts. The agents come in. He goes into the coma chamber with creepy Gideon.
Agatha gets put back in the milk
by creepy Wally. Wally's being hella creepy in this milk pool with Agatha.
It's like they're his dolls.
Like it's but like really he has a weird like he loves them in a romantic way.
Yeah, it's a really odd.
At the beginning of the movie, I was like, I like you, Wally. You're just a funny little nerd, and you gave Tom Cruise a 2-minute head start. And at the end of the movie, I was like, I don't know, you should probably check that guy's crawl space.
Don't leave him alone with the precogs.
Do not engage Wally. So Laura kind of takes the wheel here. She approaches Lamar and basically starts questioning him about Anne Lively. And he does the classic slip up. He says, yeah, I'm not really sure why she drowned or how she drowned or something along those lines. And Laura says, I never said that she drowned. And I gotta say, I never catch this stuff live when watching movies. I never catch them. I'm never smart enough and I don't hear it. I don't know about you, but I never hear it.
I don't know why Laura would express. I would just keep that nugget in the back of my head because you're around clearly a very dangerous man who's murdered before. I wouldn't call him out when we're alone in a room. I would just be like, oh, okay. And I'd leave the room and be like, fuck, he did it.
There's like a secretary that keeps popping in about the press conference.
I know, but I would have been like, I would have tried to like keep suspicions low, right? Instead of being like, I never said that. And all of a sudden now Lamar knows that she knows. All I'm saying is I kind of like the idea of when you catch a villain in a slip up, just keep it to yourself for the moment.
Just keep that clue.
So now Laura basically says, all right.
Is this when she busts into the coma chamber and like pulls a gun on Gideon's like, give me my husband?
Pretty much, yeah. So get my husband out of there.
Freaking creep.
And she was able to get in because Tom Cruise kept his old eyes from the eye chamber or from the eye transplant. And interestingly enough, he lost one of his eyes earlier. So there was only one eye that she had. A one-eyed man is a king among blind men.
Okay, now that makes sense because I was kind of...
It's a long callback.
I was kind of going off when he had the transplant done and he had bandages over his eyes. And then those kind of recon spiders from the pre-crime department started scanning everyone's eyes in that complex where he got the procedure done.
Mm-hmm.
And he decides to finally lift up one side of the bandage and expose one of his eyes so that the spiders would finally scan him and realize they don't belong to John Anderton. They belong to Mr. Yakamoto.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh, okay, he's blind in that eye. But they don't really bring that up, that he's blind, or it doesn't even visually show that he's blind. But that's where I thought the tie-in was. But now, again, Mr. Smarty Pants, that you bring up this part, because John loses one eye down like a gutter. There's no getting that eye back.
Yeah.
He drops both eyes. They start tumbling down a staircase, and he saves one. He grabs one right before it goes down the gutter, and the other one's lost into the sewers. Yeah, a little bit of a callback there. We're uncovering things. You're uncovering things. Your eyes are open. Your eyes are peeled on this movie.
Got eyes, dude. I'm with the theme of the movie. So John gets broken out by his wife, and now starts the big exposure scheme. So John calls Lamar and basically reveals to him that he's alive, he's out, he's ready to fuck up Lamar's life and ruin it all.
And this is all at a banquet kind of setting that is a press conference for why and how pre-crime division should go national across the country.
Yes. So this is Lamar's big break. Nothing can screw this up. His pre-crime is about to go federal.
He's about to get real rich.
Real rich. So then we have basically footage being projected onto the wall, exposing Lamar. I think it's Agatha's original vision that was disregarded, or that was fooled, right? With these echoes, deja vus. This part of the movie wasn't my favorite.
It's pretty expository.
Yeah, because on the phone, John walks through the entire evil plot. And I would have been a lot more of a fan if you'd left that all to the audience to piece together in our heads. Like, let me leave the movie theater in 2002 and lay in bed at night and piece it all together. How did he do it? We were given all of the information. I didn't quite need it all wrapped up in a bow there at the end. It's fine. It's a very action movie-esque catch the villain thing to do. It kind of does the same thing in a lot of like Mission Impossibles as well. You know, we're at the end when they finally confront the villain. It's like, so your idea was to do this. It's like, yeah, we kind of knew that.
It was you all along, and this is how you did it in extreme detail.
Exactly.
They show it on the screen at the banquet of Lamar murdering Anne Lively, which was thought to be an echo, but it was a whole separate murder. That John Doe guy in the beginning of the movie, wrongly accused.
Just a stooge, just a patsy.
Because Anne Lively was actually murdered, and they covered it up, and it was Lamar.
In the meantime, we go back because Agatha's back in the
milk bath.
In the temple, in the milk bath, so they can see murders again. And so they get the red ball with John Anderson.
So they get the red ball, and it shows Lamar's name. And we don't see John's name on a ball. We only see John die in a vision, or at least get shot in a vision.
So now the pre-crime is after Lamar. They know he's going to kill somebody. And we have this good standoff at the end between John and Lamar. John basically says, what are you going to do? You have two options now. One, you go through with this and you kill me. You basically prove the precogs correct and say that this system works. You'll get haloed. You'll never live to see the day, but the pre-crime division will live on.
Your vanity project will go on, and it will go national.
Or you can choose to not kill me, but that means that the precogs were incorrect, and the pre-crime division crumbles because there's a flaw in the system.
Ultimate choice there, Lamar. What you gonna do?
And Lamar throws us for a loop one last time and kills himself. And that basically proves to us that the precogs were incorrect. Pre-crime is done. All prisoners are pardoned and put on a watch list, and the precogs are released to live out their days in the real world. And Tom Cruise, once again, has saved the day.
Classic Tom. Wait, he shot himself?
Yeah.
But isn't that like the ultimate loss? Like, wouldn't you rather have one or the other? That seems like the complete opposite of having your cake and eating it too. That's like throwing the cake away and then shooting yourself.
He won't get haloed, which is good. I think we've well established that's probably the worst punishment.
Very creepy.
Would be to get haloed.
Man, I'm like blacking out on the ending. I thought someone else shot him off screen, but he shot himself.
Because he says, goodbye, John, which is what the vision said he would do. Goodbye, John, and then he'd shoot John.
Yeah.
So he says, goodbye, John. He says goodbye to him. So he screws pre-crime, but he's dead. So
yeah, he's like, I'm not going to get rich anyway. I might as well just kill myself. I don't like either of these options. I'm out. I'm not getting haloed. I know what that is. I know how fucked up how Gideon keeps us down there.
And that's pretty much how this ends.
That's the end of Minority Report, and that wraps up our plot talk. That was plot talk. That was a thick plot talk. Holy crap, you did it.
There's so many
Nick, excellent
twists and turns to go through.
Yeah, that whole movie had me on the edge of my seat. So after the plot talk, I wanted to point out a couple nitpicks, if we can jump into some nitpicks now.
Nitpicks.
My first one is one we kind of covered, where I thought, John's quote unquote premeditated murder was not premeditated, because this Leo Crow character was literally a mystery to him. The whole entire point of the encounter was the hope that he would kill this fall guy out of pure rage and passion, revenge for his son. But you kind of already threw it out there that he had that mission statement of, I am destined to kill the man who killed my son. On a technical wording there, that is the long play of John's feelings and mission towards the suspect, this kidnapper. I'll table that nitpick. And then again, I think you kind of addressed this. Another nitpick I had was Agatha was calling out the most random things in the future, during that mall scene where she's trying to escape the pre-crime cops. So I thought, why can they only see murder? And I think we kind of deduced that it's pretty subjective to pre-crime's mission. They only want to focus on murder.
Correct.
But why wouldn't they want to focus on other crimes if they can choose what they can find? See, this movie is a lot, and there's a lot of questions that come with it. So, if they can choose what kind of crimes they can see, why don't they choose all of them?
I think what it looked like was they were busy enough with murder where if you take on too many crimes, you don't have the resources, so you just focus on the biggest ones.
That still is a little bit of I'll be a stickler on that topic.
Because Whitworth did ask, he goes, what about suicide and rapes and things like that? And they said, yeah, we just don't focus on that. I mean, they just admitted to
Well, yeah,
really.
He just said the answer was that murder was the most heinous crime, which is subjective,
I agree with that. Yeah, they made that, the pre-crime made that decision. Why? There's probably some emails going back and forth with policy decision. I don't know.
Maybe there's some layers to that, and it's all behind the scenes, and we're just left to chew on it. That's all I had for nitpicks. Did you have any?
The only one I had, not quite a nitpick, too much.
Nick, this is a safe place for plot holes and nitpicks. Big or small, bring them to the table.
My biggest thing was it seemed like they were always trying to find out who these people were in the visions. And in a world where you're scanning eyes and everything and trying to figure all this out, facial recognition I thought should have been a bigger play. Who's this guy in the video? It's like, how do you not have any kind of facial recognition software? You scan people's eyes as they walk by.
They also don't have one for Agatha when she's out of the chamber. Like, people's eyes are getting scanned as they're going on and off the train, as they're entering stores. They don't scan Agatha once, and I didn't know if they had special eyes or special treatment or never registered them into the system.
Yeah, I have zero clue. Zero clue about that. That is a good question.
Well, now that John has proven his innocence, does he have to re-register his black market eyes that belong to a Mr. Yakamoto?
I'd assume so.
Now he's legit again?
I wonder if there's some like futuristic DMV that really fucking sucks.
It's like, hey, I gotta re-register my eyes.
Take a number, Mr. Yakamoto. I actually thought there was an off chance that he was going to save his eyes and give them to that blind drug dealer.
Okay.
There's only one guy in this movie missing eyes.
Nah, Lycan was like enjoying being off the grid. Dude, that guy was flying high. He was like showing off his gross caverns of eye holes. And just perking off that narrowing. He was just living high, dude. He was like, I don't want eyes. I don't want to be a part of this crap. Do not contact me, DiGiorno or Baby Gap. I'm just doing drugs in the street, baby.
Final review. Fight.
This movie was great. Again, it was very well received. How do you think the CGI and the action held up? I thought the CGI was pretty decent.
I thought it held up really well. I don't think they tried to do too much CGI necessarily. I know they did. There was a lot of CGI in it, but I didn't think they tried to go overly CGI. The only time I noticed was like the car scenes when the car's driving on the road that basically goes 90 degrees downwards and stuff. That looked a tiny bit dated for sure. But as far as everything that was going on, like with the computers and the images and the projections, I thought it held up perfectly fine.
Yeah, I think the CGI, if it was used, not to be meta about this review, but I believe the CGI was premeditated. Like, they knew what they were going to use their CGI for. They knew it was going to be the cars and the hovercrafts. It wasn't really anything after the fact to fix something in post-production or to enhance a fight scene, because all the fight scenes were done with stuntmen and they were pretty practical. It really was just the set pieces and the plot devices that were CGI. So they stuck to their guns. put the CGI where they had the plan. 20 years later, I think it pretty much holds up. I learned something today. Maybe you, Mr. Smarty Pants, already knew this. I learned the tomato meter. This is something we reference because we want some sort of anchor or point of reference of how people view these movies that we are reviewing. I don't know if you know this about the tomato meter, but for the critic and the audience score, it's essentially the percentage of the critics or audience that voted that the movie was essentially good or bad. I tried to avoid any ratings beforehand so I can go in pretty bare to the experience and make up my own result at the end. I don't want to have any sort of outside influence, but I couldn't help but notice this had a rating of 90% from Rotten Tomatoes. I always took that as this movie is a 9 out of 10, or the average score is a 90%. This is an A movie. But now I've learned it essentially means 90% of critics gave this a 3.5 stars out of 5. So technically,
Yes.
90% of the critics could have given this movie 3.5 stars. So that's not necessarily a 9 out of 10. That's 9 out of 10 critics saying it's watchable. So this is news to me.
It's a weird system.
I'm looking at it all different. So now going forward in our reviews, I'm going to incorporate Metacritic because they kind of have closer to a point system that we use. Their algorithm is pretty complicated, but basically they call it a weighted average where they take the critic's actual review and give it a grade. And then they take those grades that they assign to the critics and the users as a separate category and pretty much put it into an average.
Weighted averages are weird. I don't love them, but I see where they're going with it.
And again, this is all just for funsies so that we have some sort of outside reference of what other people think about this movie. And then obviously our sophisticated popcorn point system will tell you what the Just Play It podcast thinks this movie deserves for a final rating. Now, IMDb, that's a wild card. It's kind of like the Yelp of movie reviews. People are pretty much going to review it if they absolutely have something great to say or if they have something super negative to say. With all that said, the reviews across the board are pretty consistent. The tomato meter, the critic, 90%, 80% by the audience. People thought this was a good movie. Metacritic gives it an 80%. Their users give it a 70%. And wildcard, IMDb, 7.6. So they're all pretty kind of in that range. Decent to good to very good range. Now, if I were to try to explain this movie or sell it, I would say that the tone feels like The Matrix, the world feels like iRobot, and the plot kind of feels like Memento. And Tom Cruise is at the helm. So I think with all those kind of mixed in, you got something good there.
Yeah, I mean, you just described if I was a movie studio executive and you're pitching this to me today and you made that comparison, I'd say, yeah, we will fund this movie.
Once I get this movie funded, I'm going to give it my own log line. My log line for Minority Report, 2002. In the near future, 3 precognitive milk bath slaves predict murders for a special police force, but they didn't see the ultimate betrayal coming. Kind of want to watch it now.
Oh yeah.
Pre-show, I was floating kind of in this similar range. When I was watching it in the first half, I thought I might give this an 8. And then after the fact, I was like, I might give this a 7.6. I don't know. After talking about it with you, which is very important, this really curves my grade. I need to discuss it with my best friend who is very smart. After watching this, I got to give this a 7.8 popcorn points.
All right.
7.8. I am kind of in line with the majority of the outside critics. And like I said, the movie is very engaging. There's a lot of plot twists. I think it holds up as far as the action and the CGI and just like the overall thematics and human conflicts. I just think they could have explored a little bit more of the conflict with humanity and free will. They kind of just like had these precogs as slaves and then released them. They didn't really explore too much into their psyche and like how wronged they were. I could have used a little bit more of that just the complicated matter of the story, it opens up a lot of plot holes. We kind of covered some, and you patched some plot holes for me. But I still think, with a wild idea, you're still going to stumble upon some plot holes. It doesn't break that 8 barrier for me, but, I think it's a great movie.
I like that review. Nice and honest. If I had to pitch this to somebody, I would just tell them, this is an action-packed 1984, man. That's what this is. This is action-packed 1984, pre-crimes, thought crimes, one man finds out the system's broken, trying to break it open, big, powerful people behind it, and then just a lot of action and tense scenes behind it. My log line, I didn't really go funny with it. I kind of went...
You respected it too much.
More on the serious end. I said, in a future where crime can be detected before it happens, a police officer must wrestle with questions of fate when he's caught up in a crime that he's destined to commit.
Wow, that's better than the IMDb logline.
I was feeling this one. I was like, I feel like I have a really good pulse on this movie.
What do you do for a daytime job? Because you should definitely quit it and work for a...
Write log lines. So you ever watch a movie and you're just like, this isn't for me. I can't follow. I am not plugged into this movie at all. I was the opposite on this one. The whole movie, I felt like I was right there. Like I was in the writer's room when this was all happening. And
it seemed like
some movies you just watch.
You kind of took the reins on this podcast. And I didn't want to say it. I really needed you to, because I was kind of on the other side of that fence. I was following it, but sometimes I'm not smart, guys, and I need someone to explain it.
So I went ahead and I was wrestling with this movie as well. I was in the high 8s as we talked through it, as we kind of figured some stuff out here together. I went with my heart. I gave it a solid 9.0.
Wow.
I think this movie for me is a 9.0. It is a 9 popcorn
points.
Wait a second. It is a buttery, salty, crunchy bag of popcorn.
This is our first buttery, salty, crunchy bag.
It is for me.
We're breaking some barriers because last week it was, we're a very young podcast, but it was our lowest rated movie of Stealth 3 years after this movie came out. And this already.
Which is wild to think that this was 3 years before and it's just so much better.
It is. It really is. Well, that's the difference between a Steven Spielberg movie and a Rob Cohen movie.
It's right there. Get wrecked, Rob
That's
Cohen.
Our first 9. Together as an average, we'll have a very respectable mid-8s rating for this movie. We're kind of in line with the majority.
For me, the movie, just overall, checked all my boxes, right? I explained this last week with Stealth. I have boxes that I check when I watch a movie, right? Plot devices, world building, acting, writing, all these things. And I was just going down the line and it hit absolutely everything for me. It was meaningful. It gave me twists and turns that were very reasonable and fun and enjoyable.
10 out of 10 twists and turns for me.
You know how much I love consistency in a sci-fi or a made-up world, right? Explain the world to me. These are the rules we operate under. Don't break your own rules. That's huge for me. And this movie didn't do that. This movie kept within the framework. It built the framework in the first 15 minutes, and we were in that framework for 2.5 hours. I appreciate that. The acting was really good.
Honestly, I think we could both agree that the only kind of relevant actors from this movie are Tom Cruise and Colin Farrell. Everyone else is kind of a no-name, except our boy Neil McDonough. Everyone carried their weight. They did great.
Check my boxes, man. It's a 9.0 from me. I really, really, really like this movie, James.
I'm happy you rated it so high because I wanted to rate it high, but I didn't believe I had the credit to, because I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. You were a little bit more plugged into this movie and could follow along in the moment, whereas I was kind of maybe trailing behind with a map, a little bit lost of where we were at points.
Like I was saying, sometimes you just get really plugged into a film, and I just felt really, really, really in line with this movie the entire way through. It was a really fun watch for me in that sense.
Well, I think we'll be happy where we leave that off as a final review. And typically we drop a hint. Well, not typically. This is probably the second time we're going to do it. But this is about the time we drop a hint of what next week's review is. I got to say, it's not going to be a hint. It's going to be a straight up answer. Nick, what do you have in front of you right now?
I have a Wheel of Destiny.
You have a spinning wheel, and we can't see the future on this. There's no precog, there's no predetermination. It's a wheel, and I think there's well over 80 options on this wheel. Now, coming up next week, we got the Oscars. Now, Nick, tell me straight up, are you an Oscar guy?
I'm not an Oscar guy, I gotta be honest.
I'm not an Oscar guy either. I kind of have a thing against...
For a podcast that reviews movies, I don't like the critics very much. I don't think the best movies win very often.
You know what? And I wonder, when people start out grassroots like we are, we're kind of always defying the critics, but maybe we'll just get so good at it, we'll become the thing we hate. It'll kind of be like The Dark Knight. You either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
I'm ready to become the villain, James.
Coming up, this is going to be a new annual tradition. For Oscar week, we have a spinning wheel of all Best Picture movies. This dates back to, what is this, the 40s, the 20s?
Yeah, we have some late 20s in here.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to get a live result. Well, not live, this is recorded, but you'll get live reactions to...
It's live to me, damn it.
It was real to me. You'll get live reactions of the spinning wheel for Best Picture. Now, this is the Best Picture all the way from 2021 to the beginning of when they made this award up. So, Nick, you have the honors to hit that spin button whenever you are ready. Hit that spin button, and we will see what Best Picture we are watching and reviewing for next week.
And here we go. The wheel is spinning. The wheel is spinning. We are at... Oh, shit. Oh, this is going to be a dark podcast, James.
What is it?
It's a great movie. It's dark.
Oh, no.
Have you never seen this?
Once again, I have never seen this.
All right, folks. We have landed on 1994's Schindler's List.
Now, we try to keep it funny on this podcast, but I guess we'll have to take this one on the chin.
This is going to be a hard one to make fun of, James. This is another Spielberg joint.
I didn't think we were going to come out the gates that hard.
Are you familiar with the film?
Schindler's List is about like internment camps.
Yeah, we're going into Nazi internment camps.
So that'll be a freaking walk in the park to make that funny.
With Liam Neeson's and Ben Kingsley. So,
ooh, I know nothing about this movie. I don't know who's in it. I know I'm terrible. I don't know who's in it. I don't know anything about it. So,
well, get ready for a downer. We almost hit Braveheart, and then we almost hit Forrest Gump right after, and then we just hit 1994. We were so fucking close.
Okay, well, you've heard it first. We are watching Schindler's List next week, and we're gonna try to make it enjoyable for you.
Fuck.
I think we need to start heading on, and we've overstayed our welcome.
On that note,
we have overstayed our welcome. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you on the next one.